As a dividend income focused investor that primarily focuses on high quality stocks and ETFs that not only have the potential to move up in price over time, but also pay me dividend income basically from day one, because one of my main goals as of right now is to get my total monthly dividend income amount up to the point to where if I want to, I can retire completely off dividends sometime in the future. Now, even though as you look through my portfolio, there's for the most part pretty familiar names, things like JEPI, things like Realty Income, names like SCHD, a lot of common names when it comes to dividend investing. I also do personally partake in investing into some more alternative investment vehicles. You're going to find things like TSLY, Coney, and other names in my portfolio also. Which brings me into the topic of today's video. We're going to talk a little bit about the YMAX ETF, specifically because this ETF has now been trading for quite a while, and we finally have some more data to go off of and assess if or if not this ETF is potentially a buying opportunity for investors out there that want to boost their dividend yield substantially from day one. So if you're a dividend investor interested in income generation, I promise you're going to want to stick around, drop a like down below, and let's get right into this one. Real quick, for those that haven't already, make sure to go to the first link in my description and grab my new dividend investing ebook, where I share exactly how I went from $0 invested to now earning over $6,000 on a monthly basis and over $1 million invested in the markets. Along with the ebook, you're also going to receive my custom dividend tracker, where you can track your dividend progress on an ongoing basis and reach your dividend investing goals. So make sure to grab yourself a copy of my dividend investing ebook and the new dividend tracker today. It's the first link in my description. Now, to be fully transparent, as of right now, I don't think I own any shares of YMAX or the YMAX Universe Fund of option income ETFs across any of my portfolios. Like I said, I do own a little bit of TSLY, some Coney, but for the most part, I've stayed away from YMAX ETFs, and that's mostly because although these ETFs do have some aspects that do match my strategy when it comes to long-term investing, for the most part, there's better options out there that really suit exactly what I'm looking for. Now, in case you're not familiar with what the YMAX ETFs are, basically there's a whole bunch of different YMAX covered call style ETFs that all concentrate on a single stock. Things like Tesla concentrates on Tesla, Apple concentrates on Apple, etc., etc. And because a lot of these single stocks are relatively high beta, utilizing a covered call style strategy more or less, these ETFs have the potential to generate a ton of dividend income for investors, and a lot of them honestly have so far. But the YMAX ETF, the YMAX Universe Fund of Option Income ETF, is very special because, as it says right here, this is the fund of all funds, meaning that it will primarily invest in assets in certain YMAX ETFs, and the fund's portfolio will be reallocated on a monthly basis. And this is so that each YMAX ETF held in the fund's portfolio, including any eligible new ones, could be added to the portfolio. And looking in the YMAX portfolio as of right now, the holdings, there's things like the AMD YMAX option income strategy, we have the AI option income strategy ETF, we have Apple, we have Amazon, Coin, Disney, etc., etc. So for the most part, this ETF is sort of interesting because even if you're not a huge fan of any of these individual cover call style YMAX ETFs, by investing into YMAX, you can get some exposure into basically all of them. But still, I'm not necessarily sold just as of yet because, again, a lot of these ETFs historically have decayed a lot in ETF price, which who wants our portfolio going down over time? Now, I get it, of course. If you look at the total return, the distribution amounts really make up for it, but still. Looking into YMAX though, the distribution rate as of right now is 41.28%. That's a massive, massive amount of dividend income. And for an ETF that costs around $18 or $19 per share, we're talking 65 cents on a monthly basis, 73 cents per month, 73 cents, 63, 56, and 54 since inception. So even if we were to look at the absolute lowest dividend, the lowest distribution that YMAX has paid investors, even up until this point, the lowest one is still offering a massive, massive yield. But looking a little bit deeper into YMAX, because like I said, this ETF has been trading for quite some time now, so we have a little bit more data to go off of. Even though what happened in the past doesn't mean it's going to happen in the future, but so far YMAX is unfortunately, just like most of the other YMAX ETFs, down in the red, decayed around 5.62%. Now, I will say for an ETF that allegedly distributes, say, 30-40% plus, I personally wouldn't necessarily mind losing a little bit of price return if, of course, the investment's going to continuously pay me, say, 40% in dividends. But to be fair, this ETF has lost some value over time, as this ETF started trading at the beginning of the year at around $20.12 per share. Now it's just $18.99 per share, so it has lost around $1 or so since inception. Not to mention, this ETF is very, very expensive to hold on to. We're talking a 1.28% expense ratio. But again, if we look at that 40% yield, I guess honestly it makes up for it. But lastly, to see exactly if or if not YMAX is considered a decent investment, or at least has it been since inception, YMAX came out January 17th of this year, of course, which means this ETF has basically been trading for around half a year. Now, if you would have invested $10,000 into YMAX back during inception, and if you reinvested those dividends along the way, you would be up around 30.55%, or you would have turned that $10,000 into around $11,500 in around half a year, which gives you an annualized gain of 30% and a total return of around 15.3%. Now, on the other hand, if you invest into YMAX, the same $10,000, but then spent the dividends every single month, bought yourself something, or maybe lived off of them, you would have had a total return of around 14.7% or an annual gain of around 29.45%. Either way, not all that bad. So even though YMAX is in the green basically since inception, no matter how you really want to look at it besides price return of course, this ETF still is by no means perfect. This ETF is still paying a massive dividend with an ETF that seems to be, at least as of right now, slowly decaying month over month. Now, the argument that a lot of income investors are going to give, of course, is the fact that with these style of ETFs, you're not necessarily supposed to spend all the dividends every single month. These ETFs do have a history of NAV decay, so by reinvesting some of that juicy dividend income back into more shares of something like YMAX, you can not only lower your cost basis, but also sort of keep up with the decay. And honestly, there is a good argument there. And on top of that, if you do look at total return, this ETF is up around 15%, which is not too shabby whatsoever. Now, even with all that said, for me personally, with my personal dividend investing strategy, although at this point I probably wouldn't ever invest in any other single YMAX ETF moving forward, like I said, I do own a small portion of Tesla, Coney, and others. I honestly, just as an alternative side investment, maybe one of my smaller portfolios, wouldn't necessarily be opposed to invest into YMAX, just because I do personally believe that this ETF, even though it has a high probability of slowly decaying, I think this ETF honestly will keep paying massive distributions, especially if we see the volatility in the market like we've seen as of recently. So how has YMAX done since inception? Well, the ETF is actually up in the green if you look at total return. The ETF has decayed slowly as far as price return goes, but the distribution of around 41% is absolutely without a doubt impressive. And lastly, will I personally be buying YMAX in the future? Like I said, I'll probably grab some at some point, maybe in one of my smaller portfolios, but YMAX or any of the YMAX ETFs across the entire YMAX spectrum will never land as a top position in my personal portfolio. And I personally think that some of the investors out there that make these ETFs a large position in their portfolio are honestly dancing with fire. But more importantly than my opinion, I want to hear from you guys down below. When it comes to YMAX, is this an ETF that you either have in your portfolio or would consider it? Let us know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like and subscribe for more future content like this. Thanks as always for stopping by, and if you are interested in investing, make sure to check out these recent videos I posted right here.